Hello, love, and welcome to we're going to do a year head spread for you today at your request. Um, I'm excited to do actually. I haven't done many year ahead spreads this year, so it will run since we're so close to April. I'll start with April and we'll go through to March of next year, so we get a little bit of a preview for 2020. 2020. I'll still give you a theme card, so you'll have a card for the year. I also felt like one of these wanted to be shared. These are the Universe Has Your Back cards. Um, so I'm also going to shuffle these a little bit and share some of these. If you see like smoke drifting over, I've got some sage going on here. I'm actually house sitting, and so I have a makeshift like plate of all my altar items, including my sage and some crystals and things that wanted to be here as well. Um, so these, I'm just going to draw one and share it with you. I won't share too much about it. Little disclaimer for something I like to share at the beginning of all of my videos is, of course, that is to take what resonates with you from this reading, leave behind what doesn't. And also the other thing too is you're going to want to, especially for the year ahead spread, have a journal handy so that you can write down all the months and the cards. What I have done in the past with that is I have written down the month and the card, and then like what the reading was, and then I leave space for what actually happened. And that gives me an excuse at the end of each month to kind of reflect on, oh, okay, this is what happened. And then you can see if there's like themes that line up with what the reading suggested might be a part of that month for you. And the other thing too is, although I'm drawing for each month, the reality is these things are fluid. And so it may be something that like, oh, okay, yes, it was in April, but then it also went into half of May. Or it's a theme that carries on through several months. And so then looking back over the year, it's kind of cool to look back. I actually just had a friend of mine who messaged me. Her and I went to our first ever tarot reading together. A lady in Eugene, Oregon, a wonderful woman. She was doing 20-minute readings for $20. And I was like, I've never done tarot. I want a tarot reading. This was in 2016, so fall of 2016. And I got into tarot very shortly after that because of her. Anyway, she, what was I going to say? My friend messaged me today and said, I listened to that reading because she had recorded it on her phone. She said, I listened to it and it's amazing how there are some things you just can't hear until later on. And so I think that's really important to remember too, is that a lot of this could be just planting the seeds for things, going back and re-listening to your readings, which is a big part of why I like to record them, can be really helpful and serve you well over time, even a year, 2, 3 years from now, who knows? So, all right, let's do this. Also, something interesting too is you are actually, I think, second in line for people who need tarots from me, and the first person there's like some major block there. I can't. It's just not time yet. Because this morning I was like, oh, okay, I'll do her reading, and it was like, no, no, no. And I said, well, what if I do Brigid's reading? And it was like, yes, yes, yes. And I was like, okay. So here we are. Okay. The key to prayer is to forget what I think I need. And I love this because I think it really explores the idea of prayer, like what is prayer? And to me, what I've come to understand prayer is very conversational. I grew up in a very religious setting where prayer, and I know I said I wouldn't talk about this, but I think there's something that needs to be shared. Anyway, where the concept of prayer was very much I am nothing, you are everything. I humbly ask for only the minimum, right? Or I come and I ask for a giant miracle. Um, there's not a lot of like give and take. There's not a lot of like conversation. And you think about a conversation with a peer, someone that you really respect and you feel like you're on an equal playing field with. It's a different conversation than when you feel like you're beneath someone or that they're better than you or they think they're better than you or whatever that dynamic is. And that's a way I've come to look at prayer is like prayer is a conversation and it can be honest and it can be real. Like it can be real. And then it can be receptive too, you know, if um and it's good to ask. I think it's, you know, I forget the key to prayer is to forget what I think I need. Um, there have been times when I'm like, I need this. I need food this week. I need money this week. And then I think then there's like the deeper need is was just like, I need to trust. I need to stop fearing. I need to understand why I'm afraid. What is it that's making me afraid? Why is what's holding me back, right? So it's almost like there's what you think you need, and then there's all the other things that you actually need that are leading up to the thing you think you need. So anyway, enough on that. We are using the Wildwood Tarot cards today. I don't know if I've used these with you before. I'm in a season, though, where they keep calling out to me. This is what the cover looks like in the book. This is the Hermit card in that deck. It's a very, it's earth-based spirituality. Then the cats come on. Come on, kitty. It's earth-based spirituality, so it's based on the year of the wheel. Which is more pagan. But it's beautiful. It's all like connected to the woods and this archetype really of the wild wood, which is kind of like the wildness of our own natures. And I really like how well, you'll see the cards. They're beautiful. They've got a lot of birds and animals and then symbolism as well of like different characters within the Wildwood context. So I don't feel like that was a very good explanation, but here we are and we will figure it out. So I bathed these in some sage smoke just to clear them a bit. I've been using them a lot. I'm also, as I shuffle, really meditating on you and what I feel your message. Not what I feel. I'm meditating on you and asking for the message that is right for you to come through. All right. So again, we are starting with April and going around the calendar that way. May, June. And I've decided I'm not doing reverses for a while. I believe the message will come through either way. So especially when a new deck is, I'm still fairly new to it. I don't like to do reversals. So just a heads up, if they are coming out reversed, I'm turning them right side up. December, January, February, March. All right, and the theme card. Ooh. Okay, all right. So we got some interesting things going on here. So lots of things to work through. Let me see if I can give you an overall picture here. This will be a good place to maybe take a pause when you get it in focus. Okay. So, and that goes clockwise to the right, starting April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Center card is your theme card. Okay. So we'll start with the theme card because it's a pretty powerful message, and then I think the rest of the cards will also help to shape that. But our theme card for the year is the Lovers. This is number 6 in the Major Arcana. So probably the thing that is immediately coming to your mind is partnership. I would say that that is probably on the table. I don't like to say it's definitely on the table because partnerships do involve other people. And so it's hard to bank on other people's choices. But I will say that this is probably a period where you're going to be really ready for a partnership. And not just mentally like, oh, I'm so ready for this, but I mean actually ready. Like actually compatible for partnership at this point. What's going to help that, because what also the Lovers card is doing is symbolizing the uniting of masculine and feminine energy. And so I really think this year is going to be about reconciling those two parts of yourself, the masculine and the feminine. And if you're not doing work around that already, I would highly recommend it. The book I usually recommend for people who especially want to work with balancing the masculine and feminine and healing those aspects is Women Who Run with the Wolves. I feel like I may have recommended this one to you already. If I have, then take that as a sign that it's something that's very important and you should be reading it. Have a pen or highlighter handy. It's definitely one that you'll want to do a lot of underlying and be willing to take your time because it is meaty reading. Like it's deeper level work. I look at it as like, you have like a trowel that kind of picks at the surface of the ground, but then you have like a tiller, okay? And Women Who Run with the Wolves, it is a tiller. It is a tiller. So just be prepared for that. But the one is contingent on the other. So if you want a balanced partnership in your outer world, it's going to be very important that you do the work of balancing that partnership in the inner world. Okay, so know that the compatibility component is not a given. It's dependent on if you're willing to do the work and really embrace diving deep. I know for me, healing the masculine has been a very important part of my journey. I had a friend who led me through a meditation a couple years ago where I got to, I kind of got to go back in time and I got to re-envision my dad, which was really powerful for me because my dad was not a loving person. And so, and he had fairly abusive tendencies. So when I reimagined this dad, I imagined myself running to him. He embraced me. He told me how beautiful I was, how loved I was, how much he delighted in my presence. That was where that masculine then began to heal within me. It's taken a bit, but I did notice early in this past winter, a totally different part of that masculine part of myself. So you may even just be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but you will. If you're willing to do the work, you will become very familiar with your divine masculine and your divine feminine. And a lot of times, unfortunately, with women, our masculine has been disempowered. And so we overcompensate and we become overly masculine. And by that, I mean, we become very protective not in a healthy way, in a way that it builds walls and keeps people out. And the divine masculine is balanced with the divine feminine, and the divine feminine is very nurturing and welcoming and open arms. So they balance each other, and the divine masculine then protects and surrounds the feminine so that she can do her job. So protection is in order, but it is not steel walls, nobody gets in. It's more of understanding and discerning healthy boundaries, and being able then to say these are the limits within what I'm willing to work within. So that's just the overview card. We haven't even got started. Okay, April, 2 of Arrows, Injustice. The thing that sticks out to me for some reason is her belly. Her belly looks like it's pushing against her dress, which makes me think she's pregnant. And so there's almost a sense of something being something being conceived, or at least in development. It may have already been conceived, but it's still in development. Everything feels very shadowy and confusing because you don't get to see the baby unless you go get a sonogram, right? So it's almost like something's there. You can feel it. You definitely sense it. Like your body is like, wow, wow, wow. But you don't know what it looks like. And so it could be, there could be a bit of like, I get the term motion sickness coming in, where you don't even know what's causing you to feel this way, but you know something's there. And then because you don't know what it is and you can't see it, it almost feels even more disorienting because you're like, but I swear it's there. This is really a good time to trust your instinct, to go with your gut. And it's interesting that it's these scales. And what I'm kind of getting with that is that it may feel like injustice, but it's actually that things are being given their appropriate value and they're balancing out. And I know that sounds strange, but like it's like a feather and gold, and like obviously the gold would weigh more, and so the feather's like, wait a minute, I'm not taking up that much weight, like I don't have that much mass. And I think it's like, it's almost even playing field is kind of what I'm getting. It's like the scales are being evened out. It doesn't matter who did more wrong, who did less wrong. The scales are evening out. And at this point, it's time to go deep internally to figure out what it is you want and what you want to do next. To me, none of that sounds related, but it's what kept coming up. So I'm hoping it's striking chord for you. May is the Knight of Stones, which is the horse. And there's a sense of wildness here, a sense of freedom. There's really a sense of, I think about like a horse who has yet to be broken. And, and really breaking a horse is just so humans can use them. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I think the wildness is great, but there is a sense when a horse like is not completely broken and they get free, where they're like kicking around and almost angry. And I think there's a sense of freedom in May, but it's gonna come with almost this like angsty anxiety of like kicking and thrashing and like, what do I do now with this? What do I do with this freedom? The horse could very easily just take off and go live in the wild. But the reality is, if it's been domesticated for too long, it doesn't yet know how to do that. So there's going to be some adjustment. There's going to be a period of confusion and frustration. But all of that is giving birth to the greater life that you're looking for. June is the 10 of Stones, home. And stones in this deck represent, they're very similar to pentacles or coins in the regular tarot. They represent material, anything you can touch with your hands, see with your eyes. And home, it's almost the sense of, well, I don't know. This is interesting because it's looking through a tunnel. And so it seems like there will almost be a feeling of like you have it in sight, but you're still far away. You don't know how to get there. July is Four of Arrows, which is rest. And the one thing that's always concerning to me about this card is that the man looks to be pinned down. So arrows are in the same as swords in the regular tarot. They tend to symbolize communication. I don't know, for some reason I'm wanting to pull the book out on this one. Pull the book out. Okay, Four of Arrows. Recharging, meaning, this is what it says, recharging after a period of stressful activity, work, or emotional trauma. Allow time for the imagination to sojourn into the other world to renew and rejuvenate vitality. And what's cool is it has the butterfly at the top. And so it's almost this promise of like, if you're willing to go into the cocoon, you will get your wings. All right. But you have to submit to the work of the cocoon. All right. When the caterpillar starts to spin that cocoon, he or she is admitting all loss of control and power. Okay. Is submitting it, in fact, to the process. And I think that's what's really important to understand is rest is not just like, okay, I took a 2-hour nap, or, well, gosh, I get 8 hours of sleep a night. What more do you want? It's really submitting to the process and as long as it takes. And when you're transforming into something, going from a caterpillar to a butterfly, what I understand is that the caterpillar literally melts down and reforms, okay? That process is exhausting. There's a reason it's in a cocoon and protected from the outside world and not like expected to eat or hunt or any of that. And it's because the process of reformation and transformation is exhausting. So let's see, April, May, June, July. It's going to be really crucial for you to submit to the process. Okay, write that down. If you don't write anything else down, write submit to the process to remind you, because you're going to be challenged when July comes around, and if not before, to really want to control the change that's happening. And you're just at some point, you're going to realize how futile that is. August is Three of Arrows. And we've got jealousy here. And this is where I meant earlier that themes can bleed into other themes or other months. I really think the Four of Arrows and that whole cocoon analogy is going to last for a bit. For some reason, I'm getting 3 months. I could be wrong. What you may start to find in August is that you're jealous of those whose processes look easier. Okay? And so that's, again, coming back to submit to the process, all right? Don't let your jealousy consume you. It's okay to admit, like, man, I kind of hate that I'm having to take this long and they're only taking this long. And that may feed into the idea of prayer for you, is saying, can you help me understand? You know, learning to approach something without intense judgment or like, this should be this way and it's not. But instead going, can you help me understand why this process is taking so long? Can you help me see in the way that you would approach someone that you're giving the benefit of the doubt, okay? Approaching spirit, God, universe, your higher self, your guides, whoever it is that you talk to, approaching them with a level of, I'm frustrated, which may or may not be your fault. Can you help me understand why this is happening this way? Because I only see it through my perspective. And then being open to the answer, okay? Because they may show you right away, like, hey, you know, this is what's happening. This is what's happening, whatever it is. And just to be able to go, okay, all right, I trust you and I submit to the process. I submit to the process. You maybe even want to write that on something and hang it somewhere where you can see it every day, so you can say it over and over again until you really believe. And because what happens is the more you believe it, then the more you actively do it. You'll more actively submit to the process. September is 11 in the major arcana, which is the wood word. Man, look at this guy. Isn't he intense? He has a bobcat. He has a bobcat pelt on his head and body, and then a bobcat that roams with him. He looks to have like a staff thing in one hand, and honestly, he looks like he's dipping his hair in that cup. The cup in the other hand. So I want to look up the Woodward because I'm not as familiar with him, and I don't know what he corresponds with um, in the traditional tarot. But I do know he's major arcana. Major arcanas tend to have a bit more of a potent message to them, which is really lovely. That a major arcana is one of your theme card. So okay. Oh, okay. The Woodward stands at Lammas, which is August 1st, which falls at the summer as the summer wanes, between the elements of fire and water. He is associated with the full moon where bows meet, become vessels. Okay. A human hunter wearing a mountain lion mask holds a bloodied spear in one hand and the cup of giving, intoxication, and compassion in the other. From the crossbar of the spear shaft hangs an ivory silhouette of the oldest anthropomorphic figure found in Europe, a lion-headed human thought to be 30,000 years old. A lynx sits at the figure's side, and an eagle swoops over his right shoulder. In the background, Silbury Hill symbolizes the harvest, aligned to the sunrise at Lammas. The summer sun rises behind the Woodward, its rays painting the world gold. And there's one of the reading points. Through adversity or the process of rebalancing in life, we find courage within ourselves that flows from an unknown source. Okay. Pretty powerful message for August. And it's interesting because, April, May, June, July, August. Sorry, this is September. But this guy falls around the August. So as the summer is waning, that's his time period. Courage, bravery, fortitude, and also knowing that the elements of nature are on his side. So when you really pursue your heart's intentions, there's that saying that's like the universe conspires to help you succeed when it is truly something born of your heart. So keep that in mind. And to me, that's where the courage and bravery comes in, is to acknowledge what it is that's born of your heart and to follow it. Man, you've got some good major arcana cards here. Okay. 10 is the wheel. This is October. Interestingly enough, it's 10, which is our number 10 month. I like this card. So, a couple things that stand out. One is that it's being woven outside, near all the elements. You've got sun, moon, water, land, trees, night and day. You've got it all playing in. There's also these 3 little herons in the back. And 3 is a powerful number in any kind of sacred geometry, whether it's Christianity or any other religion. 3 triangle is the strongest structure in the world. 3 points, right? 3 is interesting. And I would recommend, I want to give you some homework here because it seems like maybe part of the work that's happening is also you learning to trust your own intuition. So I'm going to ask you to look up herons because that stuck out to me. It seems like herons are going to be an important figure for you. And you can look up animal meanings. You can look up animal spirit totems, animal spirits, whatever it is. Look up heron and find out what in there resonates with you. If it doesn't mean anything to you, just let it go. The wheel traditionally symbolizes all things, holding all things in balance. And so October may be a challenge of that, holding all things in balance. November is the Knight of Bows, which is a fox. I love his little happy little eyes. Foxes tend to be, clever is usually the word that comes up for them, and that's the word that's coming to me now. And they generally are very strategic animals. So I think what's important to keep in mind for November is keep your head about you. Don't lose your wit, your keen sense of understanding what's going on, and evaluate before you make a move. Okay, I'm sensing that meditation is going to be very important for you by this point. If you are not already If you are not already engaged in a daily meditation practice, I'd highly recommend it. But especially during this time, utilize your meditation to ask for next moves. Okay, and I think that'll be really helpful. Sorry, we're running out of time, so I'm not trying to rush, but I want to make sure we get all the months in before we're done. December, Five of Vessels, ecstasy. And I love the pentagram on the ground. She's in the center of it, which is a sense of protection. And obviously, it's ecstasy. It's like you're out of your mind. Like you're just, the logical mind is taken a rest, and the heart is able to dance and flutter and spin. And it seems like December, although it's dark, is going to be significant. A significant brightness will come for you that will guide your steps. And real quick before I forget, I want to give you the translation. So if you want to look up any of these cards online, Biddy Tarot, Biddy Tarot, is a really good place to do some research and find. What I usually say is, like, if you're confused about a card or don't feel like I gave enough explanation, go look at it and see if there's anything as you're reading through the description that resonates with you, and also write those things down because it can be really powerful. But corresponding suits here. Vessels are cups. Arrows are swords. Bows are wands, and stones, as I mentioned before, are pentacles or coins. Okay, so April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. January, you've got the Queen of Bows, which is the hair. And I came across a really good story, actually, in a fictional book, but it was it's historical fiction. She does a lot of research, and one of the things she talked about, one of the main groups in her story was the Powhatan Indian. They were Native American, excuse me. They were a tribe that was pretty prominent in the Virginia, like that area. So one of the first tribes, unfortunately, that were attacked and driven to almost extinction by white settlers, which was a very sad novel to read. Honestly, it was fascinating and sad. Most of the parts I liked were the parts about the Powhatan. Anyway, the spiritual belief structure that they have is the great hair is their god figure, and the image I got. So the great hair is, well, you can read about it. I'll leave it there because I can't honestly explain it all. I don't understand it all. But the image that was given at the end was when this white settler from England learned about the death of all his friends. He had a dream that night. He thought he would be terribly sad and depressed, but he had a dream instead of the great hair bounding across the land and picking up all of his friends in its mouth and removing them from this painful world so they could go and live in the other world with the great hair. I don't know why I bring that up, but there must be something there to research. I would encourage you to do that. And that's all I feel that's all that seems to need to be shared about that. So let it go. February is 18 of the major arcana, which is in this deck, the moon on water. The moon, and this card especially keeps coming up for my women. I really get the sense that it's really time to connect with our lunar cycles, which is really about embracing the entire package of our femininity, right? Because historically, our having our period was actually called our moon cycle, and that's where that term cycle. I mean, it's a cycle, but it was in sync with the moon. It's on a time frame that mirrors the timeline of the moon, and so that's where a lot of people connected. The moon was really women's, like they were lunarly, and that's kind of where the term loony comes from. That's from full moons, but anyway, that women were so intricately connected to the moon, because we literally, our bodies are dictated by the cycles of the moon. Um, so um, the moon is a powerful ally. Um, she's grandmother moon in a lot of pagan traditions. And I think of her as the kind of grandmother who both wants you to be loved and warm and fed, but also to be challenged and to grow into the person that you have waiting for you, like into the person that you are and into the purpose that you came into this world with. Um, so Grandmother Moon, tremendous ally in February next year, if not before, but I don't know. There's something about the moon in February that's um, it's gonna stick out to you. It's gonna mean something. And so, if you don't already, it might be a good time to start like a moon journal, and start some moon habits. So, usually the new moon and the full moon are the times that we do rituals around. And for me personally, I like to do a reading for myself on both. I have a spread for the new moon and for the full moon. Um, and I like to journal about those, and then I like to look back and see what has changed or shifted. So, something to consider. And then March of next year is number 8 of the major arcana, which is the stag. And this is interesting. If you look at him, he's got, this like deer head and then human legs, but then like the tree of life on his drum. So I'd like to read a little bit about the stag for you. So this is March next year, a year from now. And of course, the stag shares the spring equinox, March 21st, with the archer. He is associated with sunrise and the element of air. Okay, and in his position is of universal lore, where the energy of creative life enlivens the soul. Okay. The concepts of forgiveness and reward are not appropriate here. They are human ideas which have no reality in natural lore. One reaps what one has sown. Just as right or generous action brings fulfillment and peace, greed and vengeful desire brings bitter loneliness and disillusion. Balance will be maintained by the planet's ecosystem. The justice it dispenses is long lasting, and it is both merciful and irrevocable in its final conclusions. So what this means to me, what this plays into, is what I mentioned earlier about the relationship not being inevitable, and that's because the work needs to be done to balance your internal masculine and feminine before you can bring that outward. That's what I get the sense here is the conclusion of this next year period for you is you reap what you sow. What will you do in the next 12 months that will bring you closer? And I don't even mean do, because I think that really gives a sense of striving, and that's not at all. It's going back to that submit to the process. Will you willingly confront what it is within you that needs healing, and will you submit to the process over this next year? And that's going to mean a considerable level of trust. I think that's why the prayer card came out, because you're going to really need to up your prayer game. It's the only way you're going to get to know your spirit, your guide, spirit, universe, whoever it is that you connect with, that you resonate with. And maybe you don't even have a name for it. That's fine. But you're going to really need to up your connection with them and really dig deep and explore what it is that keeps you from connecting with them. I just had and went through this. I've been going through this kind of spiritual reformation for a long time, and just had to come to terms with the fact that I have been resenting the universe, God, whoever that higher power is, because my family was abusive to me and they all claimed to be Christians. And so I've rejected it all outright. And instead of going, wait a minute, there's truth here that there's truth here that I miss and that I do resonate with, and that I can forgive myself and my higher power for the actions of other people, for the actions that they took against me and how that hurt. And for the first time in a long, long time, I actually like felt compelled to get on my knees and kneel and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry and I miss you. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever it looks like to heal your spiritual connection, I really would recommend doing that, because you're going to need to submit to the process. You're going to need to trust the thing that you're submitting to. Okay, that's a big part of the reason we don't like to submit, is because we don't trust that we're going to be taken care of. So I would urge you to focus on your spiritual journey in terms of your spiritual self and the healing that you need, your connection to bigger powers outside of yourself, God, universe, spirit, whatever. And then working on building that trust so that you can submit to the process. One book I've been recommending to a lot of people lately, and it's because it seems to be related to a lot of what people are going through. Believe it or not, you are one of many that I have consulted on with tarot for spiritual healing and connection. I think it's just something that I really believe the shifts that are happening are the feminine rising up to balance out the masculine. And I don't mean necessarily just women. I mean actually feminine energy coming up and balancing out masculine energy. And because women tend to lean closer to feminine energy, we are really being called to heal our spiritual connections so that we can appropriately lead the way. Because what happens is, if we lead from ego and we lead out of a blindness to our spiritual selves, we will not do all we'll do is swing the pendulum back to toxic femininity, okay? We will not do any of the healing work that we are being called to and that the world desperately needs. So really spend some time plugging in and connecting spiritually, healing those aspects of yourself. Ask yourself hard questions. Allow answers to come up. Give yourself time and space to spend with them, because it seems like you've got some big work ahead of you, and you're going to need to be spiritually plugged in and connected before that work can happen. All right. So that was a lot in a short amount of time. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions or concerns. I'll try my best to answer, but I'll be honest, I forget a lot of readings when they leave me, which is, I think, a good sign, because that means I'm not attached to them, and I'm also not speaking for myself. I'm allowing myself to be a conduit, and you're getting the messages that you need. On that note, let them be the messages you need, okay? Don't worry about word for word what I've said, except submit to the process. That is one that needs to be written down word for word. But otherwise, write down what you've interpreted, okay? That's usually where the message is most powerful, is the way that you hear it. I believe that spirit is much bigger than all of us and can use my words to speak something totally different to you. And that will be what's impactful the most. So something to consider. As always, of course, I'm accepting referrals. I know I've talked to you about that, and I appreciate them. So if you do find that you have someone to send my way and they decide to get a reading, I will give you a $5 credit. All right. Otherwise, darling, I hope you're doing well. I'm sending you lots of love and light. Take good care of yourself, okay?